this way. James Gunn walks into the first day at the office at the DCEU, DC Comics, and is handed all this humble jumbled contract stuff. Henry Cavill will only do this if there's a Justice League thing. There's Patty Jenkins thing has apparently Patty Jenkins wants $10 million and Gal Gadot wants $20 million. That's $30 million up front. We haven't even turned the cameras on yet. We haven't, you know what I mean? And all of a sudden, they're looking at a mess of contracts, because things have been done terribly in the past, and they could be looking at a spider's web of a mess, and they might be just saying, look, if we get Henry Cavill back, then we're going to have to get Gal Gadot back. If we're going to get Ben Affleck, then we have to get this back, start from scratch. Now, I don't know if any of that's true, but I'm trying to put my business hat on. Like, I'm trying to put on the
producer hat.
The producer hat, the idea that goes on behind the scenes that says, hang about, we don't know what goes on, but and James Gunn might be just saying, we can't do all this. Like, if we keep Jason Momoa, then we've got to keep Henry Cavill. If we keep Henry, we have to keep Gal Gadot. And their contracts could be really, really expensive, like $20 million for Gal Gadot. That's a lot of money. And they might be saying, we don't want to spend that much money on them, and we don't want to say that. Or, here's the other thing they could be doing, is shooting shots over the bow to these actors and saying, we'll scrap the lot. Because apparently Gal Gadot has already put out Twitters trying to get fans to support her. So the other thing is that, there's all of a sudden all these Twitters coming out saying, how great am I as Wonder Woman? How great? And it's like, oh, okay, why are you saying that for? Oh, okay, now you're starting to. So what they could be doing is saying, we don't need you guys. We don't need you guys, to bring them back to the negotiating table and say, I really Gal Gadot could come back and say, okay, I won't do 20 million. I'll do 10 million. Okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
These are the games that people play. Like, for example, I didn't know that Henry Cavill and Dwayne Johnson have the same manager. And that manager...
That makes sense as to why it was like constantly...
And that manager was a co-producer on
Black Adam.
So that might be their way of saying, we're not going to be manipulated by you guys. This is a whole new ball game. And so it's going to be a clean sweep just to put the fear of God into them. So they come back and say, okay, we'll... I just said we don't know. Because I do know my brother was involved in the music industry, and these cats and dogs games are played. Cats and dogs.
I know. I actually think that you're probably really onto something there because of the fact that you do, and this has kind of been part of the entire process of trying to reduce down the debt that Warner Brothers Discovery has had since the merger, and this works within its game. And again, James Gunn, and I was looking over their IMDb's, like James Gunn and Peter Safran have a history of recreating these ensemble pieces together, and I think it makes absolute sense as to them wanting to kind of disassociate themselves from any contractual obligations that would disrupt the version that they want to be able to put together. Again, I would be part of the reason why I'm not surprised is because I have a strong feeling that James Gunn is going to want to put the Suicide Squad group still in place for this ongoing series. So if you're scrapping everything, that would mean that Peacemaker series, which clearly was not put on the back burner of series that are not coming back, would be affected, which is like the Amanda Waller with what's her name, the actress, what's her name, Viola Davis, and you know, and you go talk about the Harley Quinn of it all. Like, I do believe that Margot Robbie, if given a good script, is going to come back because I think she loves the character. So we are simply just talking about what are we doing with the big dogs here, and how are we going to make sure that we either you get in line or get the hell out. Because nobody wants to be trapped. And like I loved what you said earlier is Black Adam, you have this unknown entity that's given such a heavy budget, mainly because it's The Rock and what is it, 9 Cent Productions being able to lead it. And I bet you most of that money that was used was just basically The Rock's acting / producer credits money. But
in the first sequence, which went for 15 minutes,
right? Exactly. So like it makes sense as to say like, cool, you got this, but let's re-step to the negotiating table because what we did yesterday is not the same thing that we're going to be doing today. It is not going to be what we do because we're not about to have a mistake. And like I said, James Gunn has already seen the other side. He's the guy that was been part of multiple Super Bowl teams. Who's Tom Brady? No, he's not Tom Brady. That's a little bit of a high. That's a little bit of a high praise. But he's the guy that was like, yo, I was he's Odell Beckham Jr. He's like, I've been on multiple. Well, one. I don't. That's not a good.
Get you. It's LeBron James.
He's LeBron. No, it's still too high of a praise. But he is Draymond Green, who's been on multiple NBA championship teams, getting moved to say he's KD. There we go. I found it. I was gonna find it. He's KD. Who's been on multiple multiple NBA championship teams. Now moving to take care of a team on his own. And now he's telling everybody, look, this is how we're supposed to win. This is how we win. Yeah. So if you want to win, let's keep doing it. Let's go do it, and we'll do it our way. But if you don't, believe me, once this flashpoint is over, that's the only thing I'm contractually required from you guys. Everything else is everybody else's contracts. My name's not signed on it, so we're not signing off on it. This is a whole new division right now. Yeah. We won't even call it. That's probably why they stopped calling it the DCEU and changed it to just the DCU. Because it's like, you're part of the DCEU. That's Zack Snyder. That doesn't exist anymore. The DCU is what exists now. And we're going to do DCU stuff as a result of that.
Well, I mean, what Snyder can argue is he can say to all these managers, The Rock's company, he can say to all Patty Jenkins, whoever's wanting these 6-7 figure deals, look what I did with Peacemaker. How much do you think that cost me?
Right.
Like how much that cost
me? Exactly. And it was great.
And I took John Cena. How many movies has John Cena done? I don't need you guys. I can make a hit. Start out of John Cena and a big cow. At the end. So he can go to these guys and say, look, we don't need you. And then they might come back groveling and say, look, okay, we'll lock our prices down. We'll because $30 million for Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot, man, that's a lot. We used to think that's a lot of money. And you're only worth as much money as people pay for you. And if they don't want to pay, if James Gunn says, no, we don't want to pay that.
But what if like fans are like, going crazy about.
Well, that's the risk they're playing. That's the game he's playing. Like that's the risk. That's the risky game they're playing.
Yeah, but fans will probably watch it anyway.
Well, no, see, I think the thing is, it's not even worrying about the fans because the fans might be supportive of characters, but nobody's been fully supportive, or very few people have been supportive of the actual total product. And as long as the total product is in question, I mean, the individual characters are as expendable as anything else. Because in the end, it's, if you can make the story great and insert the characters, well, then we can win with whoever is there as long as they seem at least reasonable to the resemblance that we feel they need to be depicted in terms of the comics.
I guess if you think about it, they could potentially just say no to the DCEU altogether, or the DCU, and just say, we're just going to pump out Joker movies and Robert Pattinson Batmans.
Which is what they said. They said they're not even touching the Batman. They're not touching the Matt Reeves, the Batman. They're not touching Joker. This move does not affect...
They can still make lots of money on those things.
Exactly. But I think the reason James Gunn was in is to bring stuff together. So it's like, it's going to be very interesting because there's another component that comes in, which I think Warner Brothers was trying to push more, which I thought was good, but it still goes to the question of how much you push, which was trying to bring in the cultural diversity into the DCEU. And we saw the beginning of that with the scrapping of what would have potentially been a very bad Batgirl. It must have been such a bad Batgirl. And then there was talks about replacing Henry Cavill's Superman with what's his name? The Black Superman guy, Zor-El or whatever his name is. I can't remember. Yeah, I can't remember what his name is.
Yeah.
So there is the question of that, but honestly, it's not really a real question to me because I think it's easy to make that argument if you're Twitter. But I think history with James Gunn has shown that he puts leads as long as they're good, and within a reasonable casting trend. So I don't think there's going to be anything that's going to be forced per se, but I don't think that there will be as many social or obvious social cultural points trying to be made, which I think was one of the things that really hurt. I think it was one of the things that hurt 1984. It was trying to be too many we are she-woman points, as well as just the terrible chaos of multiple stories, multiple villains, inconsistent action, inconsistent tone. I mean, there was a lot of it, but that was just one, and I think that's one that they're trying to rectify, where if we're going to tell the story, if we're going to put that in, it's going to make sense to the story, and it's not going to be stand out in those elements.
Let's remind our friends to please click on the subscribe button and hit that notification bell so you know when we have new videos out.
Subscribe!
Subscribe!
Die.